Cool. Welcome everyone to our data facing call today. I am not sharing my screen. Oops. There we go. I've got a case of the Mondays, it seems. But yeah, hello. If this is your first time here, welcome. We are part of the Campus Research Computing Consortium. It's an organization just for improving the effectiveness of research computing and data professionals, and to just help with career development and visibility. We have a few different parts of CARC if you're interested in getting involved. We are part of what's called the People Network, which is kind of like an virtual all year round conference. And this is the data facing track. It deals with the data aspects like data management, data science, data curation, and preservation. But we also have various working and interest groups that are targeted towards more specific problems uh, and are working on actual types of deliverables, such as our capabilities model, which is a kind of a way to inventory the services that your organization offers and help you see how you compare to similar institutions, and also kind of help you plan for what you might want to increase in the future. And if you are interested in checking out more of CARC, we have a whole bunch of links to different pages in our notes document for today. It's got all the links to sign up, all the contact info, all the appropriate emails, all that. All right. So that's enough about CARC though. Let us get on to our presentation. Amy, can you introduce our speakers today?
Sure. So I'm very happy to have representatives from the Data Rescue Project here today. Dr. Lynda Kellam is one of the organizers, founding organizers of the Data Rescue Project, and she's at the University of Pennsylvania Libraries as the Director of Research, Data, and Digital Scholarship, also serving as the current Secretary of iAssist, and has done many leadership presentations in various different organizations. And I'm also just very excited that Dr. Kellam is here. This is one of the, I've heard about your name so often, and it's nice to actually have you come and present in person. And also that you're representing iAssist, I believe, as part of this project, but this is a joint effort from iAssist as well as RDAP, which is an organization close to my heart. And there are a few others, which I'm sure you'll share with us in the presentation. And also joining Dr. Kellam is Lena Bohman, who is also a colleague from RDAP, had a great time to work with Lena on several different projects. And you are a data librarian and on the steering committee of the Data Rescue Project. And actually in your bio, it doesn't say where you are, but you're at the library that you're at is Hofner, right?
Hofstra University in Northwell Health.
Okay, Hostrom. So I'm very excited to have you both here to talk about this project, which in some ways is scary that we have to do it again, because I know there was an earlier iteration of it in 2016, and now we're finding ourselves having to think about how do we protect all this valuable research data that's out there. So I'm going to hand it over to you both to do your presentation. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you very much for having us. We're excited to be with you today. So I'm Lynda, and I'm going to talk about our project, which is an American initiative focused on rescuing and preserving at-risk U.S. federal public data. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about what's happening in the American federal statistical system, what our group has been doing to respond. And Lena's going to talk a little bit about the connection to big data and some of the work we've been doing in that area and others have had to do in that area. So I'm going to put the links to our website and to our Blue Sky in the chat, and I'll try to keep the links going. I can't always talk and link at the same time, but I'll try to do it. So the US federal government creates a large amount of data through the federal statistical system. I'm sure many of you or all of you are aware of this. And these are just a few of those sources. There are many more. The American government, all of our data is in the public domain, and our government information, except under limited circumstances, are in the public domain, which means that public data in the US are often used for other sources of information, even if people are not often aware that they're being used or that they're using government data. Lena had a great example earlier for a project we were working on of Zillow's Great Schools ratings. And that's, if you look at Zillow's Great Schools ratings, and if you look at Zillow and look at the school ratings, that is built off of NCES data, or National Center for Education Statistics. But there's many more things that people take for granted every day in our lives that are built off of government data. In the past 7 months, we've seen unprecedented attacks on sources of US federal government information and data. And this slide includes some of the sources that have been either taken down, some have been altered, and some have been made inaccessible or endangered because of the lack of data stewardship within agencies. In particular, the US government has focused on data related to sexual orientation and gender identity, as well as data related to civil rights and marginalized groups. But not just. I mean, we've seen data being taken down or endangered for various reasons beyond those specific ones. These are just a few of the data sets that we know have been impacted, and there are other sources that are at risk or no longer have adequate infrastructural or human support. So the Data Rescue Project began in February 2025 as a partnership between 3 data professional librarian organizations. IASIS, the one I work for, which is a global organization, RDAP, which is primarily focused on data management, but has expanded beyond that. Originally focused more on the US, but has expanded and definitely has a lot of Canadian members now too. And then the Data Curation Network, which is a consortia of university data repositories that come together as a network for data curation expertise. So when we first started working together, we were wanting to help our patrons who couldn't find data. You know, patrons were concerned about the CDC data being taken down, and they were trying to find alternative sources for certain data sets. So we were originally focused on their needs and trying to help them. But we also wanted to amplify efforts that were already happening, that were pre-existing. And as Amy mentioned, there were groups that came out of the 2017 efforts that were still working, and earlier even efforts that were still working. Some of these are End of Term Web Archive, which is a web archiving effort that's been going on since 2008 with with Obama's administration. And the focus of the End of Term Web Archive is to archive the presidential web, to back up the presidential web so that we have copies of it. Because we know that as administrations change, that data will be brought down in some ways, or pages might be brought down in some ways. Thank you, Amy, for adding that in there. So we wanted to really amplify those efforts that were ongoing and make sure people are aware of them. And we gathered that information together, and that became the basis for our eventual website. And if you go to our website, there are current efforts and resources I can talk about a little bit more, but that's where that came from originally. So we came together quickly to organize our efforts. We started on February 3rd with a shared Google Doc that had these resources. And then by February 7th, we were already launching data rescues. And by February 10th, we launched a website. So it came together super quickly, and we were very lucky to have resources behind this. Part of those resources were us recognizing this couldn't be a solo effort. So we tapped into those other groups that I mentioned in the Term Web Archive. There's also Preservation of Electronic Government Information, which I'm part of. And then EDGI, the Environmental Data and Governance Initiative, which came out of 2017, has been doing a lot of the environmental data rescues. In addition, we were connected with Saving Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Online, which is a group focused on saving digital objects and digital cultural heritage from the Ukraine with the start of the war in 2022, and has done a lot of work in trying to save those artifacts. So as we came together and we started working with these groups, we decided to focus on social science data or social data, which we considered at high risk. This is very different from efforts in 2017, where the focus really was on environmental data, on climate data. That was primarily what we were concerned about in those 2017 efforts. In this year, we've seen an expansion to concerns about data beyond just environmental and climate data. So our goals, our mission was first to coordinate, to try to avoid as much duplication as possible just by, coordinating between the different groups. To communicate, to amplify what's already been done. So to amplify EDGI, to amplify one that Amy put in the chat, which is PEDP, which is a group that EDGI created for environmental data. So to communicate and amplify what they're doing, and then finally to do rescues with thoughtful, sustainable workflows. We want to make sure that we are able to conserve the data and they're able to curate the data in a thoughtful way. So we've been quite active over the past 7 months. We've enabled the rescues of over 1,000 data sets and other forms of government information. Not all of these are our rescues. I'll talk about what that means a little bit more later, but we are trying to help make if someone nominates a link to us or nominates a data set, sends that to us, then we can see if it's something we can do, or if not, then we will ask our partners to help out with that. In addition, the data rescues have ranged over 80 plus at-risk government offices. So if you know much about the federal statistical system, it's a very decentralized system. There's 13 main agencies and over 1,000 offices which produce data. So we've had to have a broad rescue data from a broad swath of government agencies. And then we have a lot of volunteers. We actually have over 800 people who've signed up to volunteer. About 200 of those are active. 100 to 200 are super active. But we do know that people are out there talking about the work we're doing and helping to amplify our work. So this is a slide of our website that Amy's helpfully put in some of the links into the chat. You can go and see the current efforts. And if you know of other efforts that are not listed here, please let us know. We're happy to add things. And then resources provides information about tools for doing data rescues, tools for doing web scraping, checklists for data curation, all of the things we could think of that would help people who want to do this kind of work. We also have to do our rescues, we created a data inventory spreadsheet and a workflow that we use with our members so that we could do this in a thoughtful way. We knew we would be asynchronously training a lot of people to work through these rescues. And we wanted to provide them as much information as possible. So we created this spreadsheet that's still ongoing for our rescues. And this is how we've been able to do most of the work. From one of our goals was to make the data as accessible as possible and as quickly as possible. We've been using a repository called Data Lumos, and that's become a critical home for our rescued data sets. Data Lumos is a repository that was created by the ICPSR. It's the Inter-University Consortium for Political and Social Research out of the University of Michigan. And Data Lumos is meant to be a crowdsourced repository for public data. They created this in 2017 in response to what was happening then, and we decided to adopt it as our home for the rescues that we were working on, with the permission of ICPSR. And what's interesting, we've uploaded 762 data sets to Data Lumos. From 2017 to 2025, there were about 100 data sets that were uploaded. So most of the data sets that are in Data Lumos are coming from this 2025 period. In addition, we are getting download data from ICPSR, and we know that it's being used. We actually had somebody send a blue sky message to us yesterday saying that they used our data for their dissertation. They found it very, incredibly helpful that they were able to access this source. So this has been a very important part of what we are doing, and we couldn't have done what we've done without this effort. The good thing about this is this infrastructure is available to anyone. So if you want to work on any data, or if you know of data rescue, or if you have data that you've stored somewhere, you can work with Data Lumos and make it publicly available. So you do not have to be an institution that's a member of ICPSR to use Data Lumos. Another thing we learned in 2017 was that it's easy to lose track of rescued data across the many organizations that are doing these data rescues. Some of us are using Data Lumos, while others might use Dataverse or other repositories. So that's why we built the Data Rescue Portal. The Data Rescue Portal is a catalog of rescues. So it's not just a catalog of data sets, but a catalog of the rescues and backup locations to where those data sets live. So you can go in and check out the portal. Amy, again, put the link in the chat, and search for different data sets. You can look by data set title, you can look by offices, and we've also provided categories for the data. Finally, for my part, we have Lena.
This is where I'm supposed to take
Oh,
over.
sorry. We can go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the other resources we created is a data rescue event toolkit. So this is basically meant to be an out-of-the-box toolkit for people who want to run data rescue events at their institution. So it has basically the idea is all the templates and lesson plans, slides that you would need if you wanted to run an event where you taught people how to save data and put it into Data Lumos at your event. Right, next slide. Another thing we're collecting is data user stories. We publish some of these on our blog as blog posts. There are other groups who are also collecting data user stories, like America's Essential Data. So there are, I think, a number of different sides to data rescue work, including data advocacy. And so this is more on the advocacy side rather than just backing up data. It's also important to communicate to people why the data is important. Yeah, so next slide. And we were talking about this a little bit at the beginning. One project we've been working on, we've been calling Save Our Signs. There's an executive order from the administration that the implementation date is coming up September 17th, that National Park interpretive signs, well, actually all Department of Interior interpretive signs that are considering denigrating to Americans alive or dead need to be removed and replaced. So we've been working with librarians at University of Minnesota and our partners in the Safeguarding Research and Culture organization to create this crowdsourced archive. So people go out and take photos and submit them to us. We just passed 5,000 submitted photos. I think we're up past 5,500 now from all over the country. And that has its own website. And you can follow along and see where people are submitting from. Yeah. And like Lynda said, we are trying to not only do our own work, but coordinate with others and support their efforts. So, there are so many small groups working in this space, which has both its strengths and weaknesses. What we don't want to have happen is we go back to having one point of failure again. But at the same time, we know that it can be really confusing for researchers to navigate. So we're trying to act as sort of that switchboard for data rescue where people can email us their questions and we'll make sure it gets to the right person, which is, a very data librarian role in a university, and similar, I guess, in data rescue. But also where we're lifting up our partners and letting people know about the great work they're doing, so that they will also participate with them. All right, next slide. So for this group, Amy Koschhofer asked that I talk a little bit more about stuff that would be more technically interesting or interesting from a HPC perspective. So I thought I would talk a little bit about the issues we've been running into with large data rescues. So that's gonna round us out towards the end. Next slide. So Lynda mentioned a little bit about how big federal data is, but I thought I'd go into a little bit more depth. The US federal government has been one of the world's largest producers of data. And, there are obvious candidates like NOAA produces tens of terabytes of data a day. And NCEI, which is like their research section, so one section, which I was able to find quickly some estimates of how much data they have is 50 petabytes, but that's not all of NOAA's data. But even like sections of the government you wouldn't expect can have a lot of data. Right now, we're looking at the Smithsonian for reasons you might have seen in the news. And the Smithsonian has a huge amount of data. Like their open data bucket on AWS is 700 terabytes. And that's what the screenshot is of their, an analysis we did of their AWS bucket. So this presents really unique problems. Next slide. So problem one is just that there aren't a lot of people who have the expertise to deal with this kind of data. So, even as data librarians, there aren't necessarily a lot of data librarians who regularly work with this size of data. And even just like transferring 700 terabytes from one AWS server to another solution requires technical knowledge that a lot of people don't have. And when you're relying on volunteers, you need to find someone who has that technical knowledge and is willing to devote the time to doing it. And even people, if they do have the technical knowledge, when they're working outside of their institutions, they don't necessarily have access to all the software and storage that they would normally use to manage that kind of large data. So that's issue number one. Next slide. Issue two is just finding storage space. When you get up to multiple petabytes of storage, not necessarily that many institutions even have that much storage. Like the hospital system I work for, their large data storage is 1 petabyte. So, even like a moderately active research university might not even have that amount of storage. But even universities that do have, say, an HPC center, they're using that storage. They don't have like 4 petabytes sitting around just waiting for this federal data to slot into it. It's devoted to other things. And then we could say put it in AWS in theory, but Amazon isn't giving that to us for free. So at that point, we need someone with money to come and not only is it monthly storage fees, but if we want to make it available to the public, usually that comes with like download fees every time someone wants to access it. And moreover, many institutions who might in theory be interested in hosting that data, they aren't set up to maintain public access to large data, or they don't want to be the people maintaining public access to large data, either for political or technical reasons, which is understandable. All right, next slide. So these are the potential solutions we've so far talked about. The number one is looking abroad. There are, of course, other governments, other places, other universities that are also interested in US data, like particularly weather data. Other researchers are using this data and don't want it to go away. In the case of NOAA, we have had success in coordinating with a research group called Pangea in Germany that also stores this kind of earth sciences data, and they've been willing to back up some of NOAA's data. So it is still going to be a more decentralized solution than the federal government, of course, which again isn't always a bad thing, but also, you know, it's a matter of finding a person who is interested in that particular data set abroad, which is easier for weather data than, say, surveys of American public schools. Then another option is to split the data up and store it in many smaller chunks. Our partners at Safeguarding Research and Culture do this because their model works on torrents. So their solution is to have crowdsource it. They have many people providing a little bit of storage, and overall they're able to host hundreds of terabytes of data that way. Another way is potentially to, say with the Smithsonian, have a bunch of different universities or people each host one museum. And then we could create a website with a directory that says, if you're looking for X museum, go here. And in the discussion section, we'd be interested to hear if people have other thoughts about how we could tackle this problem, because it really is an ongoing issue that I think we'll never totally know how to solve. So just to wrap up, these are our summary of how to support us. First off, you can share our resources and our projects inside your university with your other professional contacts. If you are interested in getting started volunteering, we're happy to set you up to rescue data. If you have any data that you have rescued at your institution or with other groups, please add it to our tracker. And we have a submission form, and that way we can add it to our list and people can help find it. We also accept financial contributions from individuals. We're hoping to eventually, as I said, cloud storage is expensive, and we're hoping to be able to eventually buy more than the little bit we have, so we can take on some of these big data challenges. And that's our email. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for sharing this great project and all the hard work that's gone into rescuing all those data sets so far. I personally put in a request to have a data set rescued, and it was a very interesting experience. And then I've also attended 2 of the hackathons that you guys have run to rescue data or to practice. I wasn't sure if we were actually rescuing or practicing rescuing, but I think we were actually rescuing the data, right? In those hackathons. So that was very eye-opening on how one of them, it seemed easier than the second hackathon. The data was a lot more challenging. So it was very interesting to attend both of those and have those different experiences. But I see Emily's got a comment in the chat. Emily, would you like to come off mic and talk about this other project that you might want to connect the data rescue project to?
Sure, I was just thinking from a digital preservation network perspective a bit in my mind, having worked with the Chronopolis project in the past. They're based at UCSD. They use the UCSD computing center there. They also have a site at the Texas Digital Library, and they move fairly large amounts of data. It's largely been cultural heritage data, but I know in the past that we've had some conversations. Just if people know the Digital Preservation Network, before it collapsed, I used to work there, and we had a conversation about kind of larger scale data and the need to kind of have multiple locations of larger scale data, including weather data. So just throwing out the folks at Chronopolis might be a great group of folks to talk to, and TDL as well. That's the Texas Digital Library program. Christy Park, Sybil Schaefer at UCSD. So just good folks that interested, I'm sure, in helping as much as they possibly could with, it would be university infrastructure. So it may have its limitations.
Yeah, no, that definitely. If you could reach out to us with the contacts, that would be
Absolutely.
through Amy. That'd be helpful to. I mean, I will say we've shied a little bit away from
Yeah.
institutional. We don't or either have been pushed away a little bit from institutions just for obvious reasons. ICPSR, the University of Michigan, was one of the first to actually come out in support of the data rescue movement, and we approached it from this is a preservation concern, not a political concern.
Right.
So I think that's the groups that have been able to help us in that way have reached out, but we haven't heard about everybody certainly, and it'd be helpful to know more about them.
Yeah, happy to follow up.
Awesome. I can talk about, so the AWS program, I think the challenge we had with that, is the length of time it took. And all of this has happened in 7 months. So it's been hard to kind of keep up as well as do future planning in some ways. So that's, I think that's something that we can look into maybe for the future, but we've heard that it could take a little time for that to actually, for somebody to be accepted to that program. But Jan, if you have additional insight on that, it might be helpful.
Yeah, so thank you for your presentation, and more importantly, this is absolutely fascinating to learn about and critical to so many things that we take for granted in our days. In terms of the open data, yes, there is, it does take time. But I would encourage you, you said it's been obviously a very fast moving effort, but perhaps once you can catch your breath for some of these data sets that you either know or have other insights to as to being globally of interest, and perhaps ones that are more complete and ideally have a community of practice around that data or practices. Though, as far as I know, those are the data sets that are most welcome within the open data program. So I am not on that team, but I'm happy to put my contact information in the chat. It's already in the notes. We can talk more about, I can get you in touch with folks that do have an active role in that program here at AWS.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it possible to see which data sets are being actively sponsored?
Yeah, the website has a listing that I have not explored of all the data that's available. What I'm not sure is if it indicates, I think all of the data that are available there are sponsored, and that means we, AWS, are covering the costs of the storage and the data, any data egress fees.
Yeah, it looks like you can filter to that particular group. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. Any other questions?
A shout out to Amy Narnberger, who's putting a lot of links in the chat for all of us to explore. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat or you can come off mic.
Yeah, I'm wondering if anyone on the call is familiar with Open Storage Grid. That might be a way to at least get some temporary storage while you're scrambling just to get all the data downloaded. Yeah, I don't really know much about it beyond that it exists, but it might be. I think if you look at the Access CI program too, some of it comes with temporary storage while you're doing stuff. So that might at least be like a short-term solution.
Do you have the links in the chat?
I can get it, yeah.
I mean, I think one of the things from early on, I will be frank, there was some concerns about keeping things in the United States early on. So a lot of the focus, and that's why safeguarding research and culture has been so helpful, is that using a more distributed model was one that we wanted to try, and definitely distributed model plus using European partners, Canadian partners, was something we wanted to get in the habit of doing, or focus our efforts on, not just because of the well, not just because of concern of that someone taking the data down, but also concerns of the political blowback that might happen with certain institutions. So we were just trying to be very mindful of that. We also had some storage in 2017. There was lots of offers of storage that dried up, let's say, after 2022, 2021. So the real need is for ongoing. This is a perennial problem. This is not going to be a 2025 only problem. It's something that's going to require real commitment over a long period of time. And that's what's been the beautiful thing, I think, about ICPSR is they are committed to long-term preservation. So anybody who is offering storage needs to be committed, or wants to serve as an archive even needs to be committed, in my opinion, for the long-term preservation of this data. One of the things we've realized with this effort is, Lena was kind of hinting at this too, is that the assumption in the past has been, point to the federal government as the place of record, as the location of record for data. Even ICPSR did that in their normal archive, where you would land on an entry for a Common Core of data, and it would send you over to the NCES, or for PRAMs over to the CDC, or wherever the home data agency was. And so there's a realization that we're going to have to take a new model, that we can't rely on just one copy being one backup. And what that looks like in the future, we don't really know, but it's definitely something we're having to handle or tackle with. Yes, IOI, we have contacts with them. So we are definitely in contact with Invest in Open Infrastructure. They are fantastic.
I think a lot of institutions right now are a lot more hesitant to get involved also. Even if they want to get involved, they don't want to get involved publicly. So I think that provides complication as well for relying on US-based institutions. Because even if, you know, the librarian we're working with wants to be involved, there's always possibility that someone in administration gets spooked and decides it's not something they want to be involved in.
I don't know if you guys can speak to this, but to me, it feels like this go around of this data rescue in one way has a lot more visibility than before, and also more, like I don't know if ICPSR was involved the last time. It feels like you're running a lot more hackathons. There's a lot more, but there's also this, as Lena's mentioning about the fear of retribution for trying to work against something. I mean, the government is taking the data down. They have a reason for doing that, and by doing the data rescue, there may be consequences. But I wondered, in a comparison of these two events, because it's, it came together really fast this time. I don't know how fast it came together the last time, but it's just, there's a lot of lessons learned probably from the last experience. Were those shared with you? I do know some of the people involved in the last data rescue got really burned out because it was hard. And so I just wondered, and if you don't have that, can make those comparisons, understand, because this actually might be a really interesting, research project to think about these two experiences.
That's definitely something I've been thinking a lot about. So I was involved with the PEGI project, the Preserving Electronic Government Information Project, in 2016, going into 2017. And that way met a lot of the people, Lori Addison, Therese, Lori and Margaret Jans, and some of the other people who were involved with that 2017 effort. And I think we have definitely learned lessons, and we have connections to them, so we're able to with Lori and other people, we're able to talk to them about kind of take guidance from what they learned in that effort. The big difference between now and then is I think we're way more connected to the wider community of both data rescues and those who are interested in the federal statistical system. So we have connections, with American Statistical Association and people who are doing more of the monitoring of the health of the federal statistical system. And so that's a very different thing, I think, from the last time, where it was widespread and it was very popular, but it was more focused on the rescue part and not so much the what do we do next part, right? And so that's been a big thing for us, is providing infrastructure guidance for whoever this happens to next, because it's going to happen again. It's either going to happen in the United States, or it's going to happen in other countries, or it'll happen in a state, right? We're going to see this happening. Digital objects are fragile, and we cannot assuming the permanence of digital objects. And so there will be the needs for rescues going forward. So our goal with this, and part of the reasons why we're raising money, is trying to provide that infrastructure for anybody else who ends up in this situation. And just the original 2017 effort was based at the University of Pennsylvania, where I work. At that time, there was more infrastructural support and institutional support for the effort. Now we realize that couldn't happen necessarily this time, and so it had to be removed from the institutions, just to make sure that it could be continued. And yes, Amy is right. The scale is much different this time. It's so much different compared to last time. We didn't actually see that much data go down in 2017. And even now, we haven't seen the data being removed so much as we've been seeing the people who steward the data being removed from their jobs. So we cannot, if NCES only has 3 people working on the data, then we don't have, that's not enough people to provide support for these complex data products. And so that's the real concern, is making sure the data isn't just out on the internet left to without any stewardship.
It looks like there's a few more names being suggested in the chat. John Paul Freyette MacArthur is another name. And
I would also recommend just kind of sending some calls out to the People Network. So a lot of the folks who actually run the storage don't usually attend this particular call. So if you just send emails out to the main People Network list, you might get some of the admins that way, and they might have more insight about how to do this sustainably.
Sounds good. I'm not sure how to connect to the People Network, but we can talk to Amy, either Amy, I think.
yeah, if you want, I mean, I can forward any email you want to the People Network, so we can help you with that part of it. So.
And I would recommend adding an account to the list because if you're not on the list, your messages are moderated. That gets really hairy when you're trying to have a conversation. But yeah, we've got that link on how to join somewhere. Here it is. Yeah, and I know we have a pretty sizable Canadian contingent as well.
Great.
So
Excellent. Right, yeah, no, we can definitely look into that. And I will just Amy is on our steering committee. That's one of the reasons why she's Nuremberg has been putting things in the chat. So if we can connect through her.
Yeah. Any other questions? If anyone wants to come off mic, you're welcome to, or put it in the chat. If not, we can close out early today. Again, I just want to thank you both, Lynda and Lena, for coming today and sharing this amazing project. And again, for all the hard work that's been done in this very short time of 7 months. And so it's just incredible. And like I said, it's been very educational. I recommend attending a hackathon if you're going to sponsor another one. Those were really interesting to actually participate and to actually be rescuing data. It's not easy, I'll admit that, but it was also really interesting to participate. So.
Oh,
Yeah.
and thanks, Amy. Go ahead, Lena. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that, yeah, you can definitely attend the Data Rescue Project office hours. I am planning to put together another hackathon for RDAP sometime later in the fall, but I don't know when yet. Yeah, probably like late October, early November.
Okay.
And we have office hours this week, tomorrow. So if you're interested in coming out to those, feel free. Tomorrow is more just a general casual get together and you can learn more about what we do. And then the next office hour is September 17th. We'll be talking to the Save Our Signs people that's the deadline for the signs to be reported. So we'll have a special office hours that day.
Again, thank you very much and have a great rest of the day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks all.